What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Finally, we have the R33 DE+T back in here on the hoist. This was one of the cars that was meant to be getting finished off and get sent out the door on our July shutdown. Unfortunately, it's been another horrid few weeks. We're now into the second week of August, as I'm sick again. It's just been non-stop punches between the whole family being sick. It's just been horrific. Anyway, we've finally got this thing back inside. If you can see out here, we've already filled the space that it was occupying under the cover. That's how much this is gonna be the last time it comes inside. There's nowhere for it to go outside anymore because now it's gonna get finished and go out. One of the last things we ordered from the last episodes was just a few final things to finish the intake setup. I wanted to put proper fittings, push lock fittings on this fuel rail that were right angles instead of the ones that were on it. So we've got some of those. We've got our intake with air filter, and we've got our new joiner to actually join this intake pipe. So we've got all our one-piece sort of charge pipes and everything sorted and sweet. I wanted to stick with the blue theme, so I did get blue. We've got blue everywhere else in the engine bay, so figured we'd stick with that and keep on going with blue. But anyway, point is that we are going to get stuck back into this thing and get it finished because the owner needs it back. It's been here for way too long. It's one of those things that we need gone and done and finished finally. So anyway, there's not a whole heap of stuff left to finish off. I'll finish off this cooling system stuff. One thing we do still need to sort out is the idler pulley for the AC system and get some belts. But apart from that, it's just a little bit of wiring, finish this fuel system, put the fuel pump in it. I've got to wire in some gauges, put the ECU in it with a few sensors, and honestly after that, we're pretty much ready to hit the key. So been frustrating that there's not really that much to do, but we haven't been able to get to it, but we're at it now, so let's get it sorted out. Like 5 minutes in, I already want to smash that against concrete. So, I figured that the fittings on these, on the old rail, were also AN6, and the fittings that were on these fuel lines were AN6. So you'd think that'd be pretty safe, you know, buy AN6 push lock, turn them to 90s. But no, this is like 5/16 fuel line, maybe even smaller. I don't even know what that is. And then you take it off the other end on the regulator, and it's like a JIC fitting. So this is pretty much going to need all new fuel system fittings that aren't bogus. So more parts that I wasn't counting on getting. Just again, this car, the car that keeps on giving. Pretty sure there's not been one thing on this car that we've touched that wasn't just cooked. Righto guys, back here today. Woke up this morning, even worse as far as my sickness goes. Terrible. Anyway, this afternoon, I've sort of been procrastinating a fair bit today just because of how annoyed I am about being sick and everything else. But I actually finally fixed my drone this morning. So finally have a working drone after, you know, the 4 weeks after I bought it when it broke like 6 months ago. So that'll be cool. But anyway, made the little intake piece. So that's how the intake is going to be finalized and finished off, which is awesome. Had a look. I don't have the right fittings for this fuel system to do what I want to do, so I'm gonna have to order some more fittings this week. It is what it is. I went to put the power steering pump back on, and that reminded me that the reason it's not back on there is because we're still trying to work or fix the idler for the AC system. So I'm gonna try and find where that is. I think it's in the car, and sort that out. One thing I did not mention, I don't think, we do have a tail shaft for this thing now, so we're not just getting one made. It's an aluminium tail shaft, that one there. So that is just a one-piece tail shaft to go from our newly shimmed diff back to our fresh R33 DE+T gearbox. So I might chuck it up and make sure that that actually fits and is the right length. But this has all actually worked out really well. I'm really happy with how this has all worked out. It's exactly how I sort of imagined it in my mind. This is all cut and properly bead rolled and everything. Broke the bead roller out. So all fully legit and professional. At the end of the last episode, I did say that this episode we would actually start going through the electronics of actually what's going in the car, so I will go through that with you right now. So all this stuff has been waiting on the shelf very patiently for well over a year to go into this car. Because we're trying to stay with the standard loom and stuff, we're not trying to do too much wiring. Obviously, the whole idea of this thing was, from the start, it was a fairly tight budget, and it just sort of turned into more and more and more and more work, which we'll keep trying to do on a tighter and tighter and tighter budget. So we didn't want to splash out too much, so obviously a plug-in ECU was going to be the answer. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the best plug-in ECU on the market for this car is this Adaptronic modular plug-in. So these ECUs, compared to most other ECUs on the market, are insanely capable and very well priced. So the Eugene software from Adaptronic is pretty good. Like even look at that, you got MAP and EMAP on the ECU. Straight up. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with these things. They're really, really awesome. I'm a big fan. Unfortunately, sort of aftermarket support has sort of fallen by the way, or after sales support, I should say, has somewhat fallen by the wayside in recent years, but as long as you have the patience and you're happy enough to sort of learn the software around yourself, I do very highly recommend these ECUs. I really, really do like them. So we got Adaptronic, modular plugin, Innovate. I think this is the, I can't remember. It's just a fairly cheap Innovate wideband. It's one that's got an actual gauge display, so you can actually see what your wideband's doing. And then from Adaptronic, you can also buy this 4-pin Molex cable, which means you can actually go from the wideband controller directly to the ECU. This ECU's already got the program in it, or it's already programmed to recognize all of the calibration and everything from this unit. So you just put that cable in it, bloop, you've got wideband, you've got full closed loop O2 control, the whole shebang. So these two products do work really well together. And if you are doing something like this, at a very minimum, this is the bare minimum that I recommend that you do. I really do believe that anyone setting up a car with an aftermarket ECU in this day and age should be factoring in a wideband controller of some sort. So this is like a bare minimum that I recommend. So as well as that, obviously, we'll be going to MAF-less in this car. There's no MAF, which means we need an intake air temp sensor. So we've got an intake air temp sensor there, and then we will be doing ECU boost control. So we've got our MAC valve as well. So this is very, very bare bones. So we'll have closed loop boost, closed loop fuel, and that's more or less it. And then, your fueling and spark control. So not a very complicated setup, quite simple. But yeah, I am a big fan of the Adaptronic ECUs. We actually have, there's a Adaptronic in this car, this 1J Hilux, twin turbo 1J. It's got an Adaptronic M2000 in it. So same software, Eugene. And yeah, really, really nice ECU, really nice software once you figure it out properly. And yeah, just, we're a big fan. So the instructions for the Adaptronic tell you all of the wiring that needs to be repurposed for it to work properly. So there is wiring that needs to be repurposed for your intake air temp sensor, a few other bits and bobs that you need to change, but it's all very, very easy to follow. So, actually getting one of these installed in your car is actually quite simple. It's a really easy process. Oh, how good does that look? New one-piece shaft, yeehaw. So another thing I'd totally forgotten about until I got it up and got underneath it just now is that we still need a solution for a gearbox speed sensor, like a speed sensor. So I still need to figure that out. I totally forgot about that, which is a pain, but anyway. Just another one of those things we've got to do. There's still a fair bit of wiring to sort out on here, which I'd also forgotten about. But anyway, we'll work through it. Rightio guys, so I've sort of just been in and out tinkering with this thing as the day progresses. Been a bit of other stuff going on, but started to sort out this fuel system, made the fuel line back to the reg, the return line from the rail to the regulator. I've got to make the new line from the filter to the feed of the rail, but I'd assumed that it was 5/16 stretched over a 3/8 barb on the filter, but it's actually a 5/16 barb on the filter. And obviously with fuel lines, you don't want to go trying to squish hose down onto barbs and stuff like that. That's not the right fitment. Fuel's not something you want to play with. So I need to get a barb that can reduce from 5/16, or from 3/8 to 5/16, so that I can make that out of push lock. So I'll try and get that tomorrow. I've got to go for a big gallivant drive around tomorrow. Heaps of stuff I've got to go sort out. So I'm going to take the idler for the AC system, the tensioner idler, and I was going to try and press the bearing out of it, the one that's cooked, but I'm pretty sure if I try and press the bearing out of it, it's just going to collapse. So I'm just going to take the whole idler and go to a bearing store tomorrow and try and get a bearing for that. I'll try and get this barb that I need. There's a few other bits and bobs that I'm going to try and get for this thing. But, generally just ticking along. As you can see, radiator goes in. We've got a fan shroud to suit. So this came from Alexi Heelan, who has the pink shirt stuck in R33 that used to be R25, but he's since Barra swapped it. So because he's running a Barra, he doesn't need the fan shroud. So he actually sold us the fan shroud. So big thanks to Alexi for that. So it'll just be like a back to a regular viscous fan hub on this thing with the shroud. They work awesome for what this thing's got to be for a street car. It's hard to go past one of those things. They just draw heaps of air. They work awesome. Started mounting the boost control. That's all going to get set up. That's pretty simple, and I'll need some heat sleeving to go over all the boost lines over that side of the engine bay. We're really cracking along. The list is getting shorter. It's was a lot longer than I anticipated. Yeah, anyway, I need to get a speed sensor ASAP. Still a fair bit to go, but this is getting shorter. We'll crack through it. All right, guys, a sight for sore eyes. We've finally got the 33 back inside. Now, what a saga this has been, all because of this. So, it's now been a good probably couple of weeks since the last clip in this episode, and the 33 is meant to come in and not leave until it was finished. Unfortunately, frickin' gearbox speed sensor. What a pain. Anyway, we got one. So this is a D21 Navara speed sensor. Hopefully that's all good, which means hopefully now we can get that sensor in the freaking car, which means we can get the gearbox full of oil, which means we can get the shifter back in inside, which means we can get this thing freaking finished. All right, guys, well that was short-lived. Sensor does not seal in the hole. It is not gonna work. I don't understand it. I'm so all right, guys, back here this morning, threw the toys out of the cot. I've had my tantrum. We found a factory DET speed sensor in Australia last night that I've ordered. It's gonna be here in like 10 days. It cost a lot more than I'd ever want to pay for one, but we just need this freaking thing done. So anyway, after all that, it can come back off the hoist and go back out of the way until this new speed sensor gets here on the 28th. So another delay, more of a wait. How good. Anyway, one day it'll start and run. One day. Righto, guys, we are back again, and hopefully this time I'm not lying to you when I say this is the last time. We have just bit the bullet, found a factory 25 DET speed sensor kit. So that can go in. We'll sort out the wiring, which means we can then finally get fluid in the box, which means we can finally get some fluid and spark plugs and stuff in the engine and start turning stuff over and finish this off and hopefully get it on the freaking dyno and get some numbers. So a few bits and bobs that I've been doing in the meantime. I can't remember if I filmed or not, but started wiring in our intake air temp sensor. A few other things that we're starting to wire in. Things like the wideband, all the rest starting to go into the car. So as far as the real cheap eBay gauges that the customer did supply, I've decided I'm not going to fit those just because I really don't like them. They're just not very good quality. And you guys know that I hate doing penetrations in people's dashes and interiors and stuff. It's just one of those things that's so personal. It's so easy to do something that someone else hates or would rather not. So I just would rather not deal with it. I don't need them gauges for obviously myself for tuning it at all. I can see everything I need to see on the ECU. Not only that, I did put all the senders where they need to go, so it's not a lot of work for them to sort of, you know, finish putting them in themselves. It's just that I don't want to go doing the penetrations in the dash and stuff like that because, oh, you guys know, JDM stuff's getting a lot harder to find in good condition and a lot more expensive the longer we go on. So I'm just, yeah, not that interested in doing that. So I'm not going to bother with that, but we'll get the wideband in, and yeah, we'll party with this thing on the dyno. So anyway, we'll lift it up, we'll make sure this is right, and make sure that nothing else is going to delay us on this freaking car, which fingers crossed, fingers and toes, everything crossed. All right, guys, not all good news, unfortunately. So sensor doesn't actually go into the hole. Just spent a couple of minutes with some sandpaper, just sandpapering out the hole, but the sensor's just too big, won't go in. Just gets stuck there. So there.
I think just a little bit of patience. We'll just have to just keep
on the sandpaper, keep going. Anyway, just want everyone to know that if I dropped out of a brain aneurysm or a stroke or something, it was because of this freaking car. Righto, guys, we've finally got ourselves a speed sensor. I've extended the reverse sensor. Everything's sort of done with the wiring under here. Starters in and wired up. Goodness, this is some really nice progress to be making. So I really hate that these have been siliconed in. That's a real pain. But anyway, I'll pull this one. We'll start looking at getting some fluid in the gearbox. Bleed up the clutch. Fluid in the engine. Turn it over. There's a water line that I've got to finish off that Rex pointed out that I didn't see before. So a few things like that to sort out. Then we start looking at trying to build some oil pressure in this thing. Yeah. Then water pump, pull the in fan, measure up some belts, get some belts ordered. And this thing should be freaking on the way. It almost doesn't feel real. All right, boys and girls, I got Rex to help me fill the gearbox from the shifter hole this morning. Tell me when it was full. He also helped me bleed the clutch up. So, as you can tell, those sorts of things happening. We're getting pretty close. It's still all yesterday afternoon. There were a lot of things. We're not even going to start going through them all. There's still a lot of things that happened that this thing is just the bane of my existence. There are a lot of things that I touched in this engine bay which ended up having to be fixed and replaced. It took a lot longer than it was meant to. But yeah, again, just the theme of this car, everything I seem to touch needs attention, needs fixing. There's always something, so doing my head in. But anyway, like I said, we're getting freaking close. I'm over here putting the base map on the ECU, so that's how freaking close we're getting. good old electronic. So what I will do also is fully drain the tank of fuel and put some fresh fuel in it, because obviously that fuel's been sitting for at least as long as the car's been here, and who knows how long before that as well. So not going to be trying to start it on that old fuel. All right, guys, so this car strikes again. Now, I didn't bother a lot of the other things yesterday because I was just flat out bored to trying to get the thing ready to go. And I didn't bother filming a lot of the stuff like I talked about just then. But here's first thing this morning. So I'm at a point now, I've got the ECU in the car. I need to hook the battery up so that I can start chasing power outs and things like that, start figuring out how I'm going to hook up or wire in the wideband and the rest of the things. Come back here to hook up the battery. Oh, someone's pulled the bolts right out of the battery terminals and stretched them right out. So I just spent probably a good 10 minutes trying to get this battery terminal back into shape so that I could fit a bolt in it so that it'd go on right. Oh, and wait, look, someone's put the wrong battery in. That's why someone's gone and stretched the terminals right out, because someone's put a battery with big terminals in instead of the correct battery, which should have small terminals, which these will actually fit. And this is the sort of thing that is just consistent with this car. It has just been worked on by just, it's so incredibly frustrating. And like, the frustrating thing is, I don't even think it's the owner that's to blame. I'm pretty sure he's actually paid for a lot of the work that happened on this car that I've come across now, which is all I had to get fixed. So I don't even think it's particularly his fault, but unfortunately now it's all my problem. And it's just, man, this freaking car, I cannot wait for it to be done. For now, for what I want to do, I'll probably just chuck these on and sit them over the terminals. It's going to be enough for me to start prodding and pinning and finding out how I'm going to wire this stuff up. But all right, guys, we're down here in the freaking rain getting this shifter off this GQ Patrol RB30 box. So from what we'll note about these Patrol boxes over the years is they're actually a lot closer to a 25 box. And what I've just figured out is that actually the little bush for the bottom of the shifter that goes into the locator for the rod in the box is different between 20 and 25. So his old shifter is not going to work. So I'm hoping that the bush on the end of this is the right size and I can plug the bush off this and put it on the other one and get it to work. Because if not, I've got to order one to suit and I don't want to have to wait for it. So down here in the rain, in the mud, getting this out. That's looking a bit more like it. Might just chuck the whole Patrol shifter in there. Get the truck shifter happening. Righto, guys, so close but so far. Just up to a point where I was literally just draining all the old fuel out of the tank and we're getting ready to hit the key. But trying to drain the fuel out of the tank, even just running through this hose straight into a drum, there is no pressure in the rail and it's literally just pissing out of this rail and O-rings. So I don't know what the go is. I've tried different spaces on this. You know, I've had this rail off 4 times in the past 15 minutes trying to figure out the hell's going on, and they're just pissing out, like absolutely pissing out. So I don't understand, doesn't make any sense to me. Obviously it's not the right O-rings, or maybe it's a faulty rail. I don't know, we've never had this problem before and generally don't have any issues from Raceworks. I bought the kit, the injectors and the rail from Jay at Brisbane Fuel Injection, so it's just whatever the O-rings were that were on it when he gave it to us. So normally he's right onto all that sort of stuff, so I've got no idea what the hell's going on here. Doing my head in. Righto, so new top seals on the injectors seems to have fixed the problem. We'll see how it goes now that we've actually going to have some pressure in the system. Drain the tank. We've got a little bit of 98 here, just enough to probably get this thing just started, which is going to be sweet. And I'll get, after lunch, I'll go and get some more 98 to put in it. But we are getting very, very close to starting the damn thing, which is so freaking exciting. Righto, so just dialing in some fuel pressure, and every single hose fuel line that I didn't replace is leaking. So I'm just gonna have to go through and replace the rest of them. I'm sure that the day will come one day when I can actually start it. All right, guys, so finally sorted all the fuel leaks out, set the base pressure. Pretty much what's left is to start the damn thing. We'll hit the key and see if this thing starts up, which I freaking hope it does. After the car that it's been, the project that it's been a freaking long row. I really do hope that from here it just starts and we're good. Righto, guys, it is the moment of truth. Let's see if it starts. So close to mental breakdowns with this freaking thing. Definitely got a miss. So you could hear starts and run, doesn't sound too happy, right? So we've got 1, 2, and 4 are dead. We're only running on 3 cylinders. So first things first, we just swapped number 1 and 5 coil pack just to make sure it wasn't dead coils, but same result. 1, still dead cold. So it's not just a dead coil pack.
It may not even be coils, but just figured that'd be the best place to start. We check power, both the coil and the injector are receiving power, so at this stage it's basically start to work backwards and try and fault find and try to figure out where or if we can find the issue somewhere. So yay, the fun of it all. I guess the easiest place to start, because they are RBs, there are sublooms, so I'll just start doing some resistance testing, some continuity tests just in the sublooms for the dead cylinders, make sure the injectors and coils are all doing what they should be doing in the sublooms. And yeah, we'll start working back from there, I suppose. Oh yeah, here's a nice one. I don't think it's particularly a problem at the moment, but that is just absolutely repugnant to see in something like this subloom. What a fucking, yeah. Goodness gracious, people. That is disgusting. Disgusting. Righto guys, so just a quick poke around. We've got 12 volt at the core plug. We've got continuity from the earth to the engine. We've got continuity from the trigger back to the igniter. We've got continuity from the igniter back to the ECU. We've got continuity from the injector trigger all the way back to the ECU as well. So, as well as obviously we've got 12 volt to the injector too. So, by rights, wiring is checking out. So, like I said, we already swapped 1 and 5, which we knew was firing. Didn't fix the issue, so it's not, doesn't appear to be a coil hardware issue. So it's definitely looking like it's going to be this igniter is going to be the issue. So unfortunately, I don't think I've got another one. I'm going to have to start going through a few boxes and things and see what I can find. But it's looking like the most likely culprit is that igniter box.